I was brought up in London. I was familiar with Sloane Square. I was familiar with the British Museum. I was familiar with the Natural History Museum. When I bought the house, it was advertised with an attachment to Hans Sloane. The estate agent was wrong about that. There's no attachment between my house and Hans Sloane. But I wondered who was this Hans Sloane with a connection to Killyleagh. And to my amazement, I found he was born in Killyleagh in 1660. His father died. He had two surviving brothers, but his mother remarried and moved away from the immediate vicinity, leaving him to be brought up by friends and family. He was educated in the castle library and a local school. He then became ill, and through the illness he read a lot. He looked at the loch for his inspiration for wildlife, particularly the plants he was particularly interested in, but he was also interested in animal life. He left to go to London at the age of 19, studied in London, then went to Paris, studied in Paris. Couldn't take his degree in Paris, however, because he was the wrong religion, but he went to the University of Orange and graduated there as a medical doctor and a natural scientist. He returned to London and secured a position as physician to the new governor of Jamaica. And off he went to Jamaica, and his passion was collecting. He collected plants, collected parts of animals, and on his return he produced 2 volumes, one of the first great science travel logs that have been produced in science. He continued his work as a doctor. He was physician to royalty, but he also tended the poor. One thing that he is famous for is that he brought back to Britain the idea of sweetening chocolate. Chocolate was known. He didn't invent chocolate, and it was a rather bitter drink. He didn't like it as a bitter drink, so he thought of adding sugar and milk, and he brought that back and he used that as a medicine. But it became popular, and he sold the recipe on to various people, which then went on to the Cadbury brothers. So the Cadburys eventually used Hans Sloane chocolate, and they used that name in their advertising. He became quite wealthy. He invested well. He was interested in using plants as pharmaceutical agents, and some of those were very successful. And he collected all his life. He had a house in Bloomsbury in the centre of London, and he filled it completely with his collection. He had to buy the house next door to expand the collection, and he filled that house. And he was looking for somewhere larger, and he found a very large manor house on some marshy land in a place called Chelsea. And so he bought the house and the land and filled the house, and continued to invite a vast number of people to his house, to his museum. On Sloane's death, that collection passed to the nation. He didn't leave it to the nation quite. He offered it to be sold to the nation for the princely sum of £50,000 to help provide for his daughters. But his daughters did quite well because they had Chelsea as well, the house and Chelsea. However, the nation bought the collection, and they created a lottery to get some funding to build the British Museum. And the reason why the British Museum was built was specifically to house Hans Sloane's collection. Subsequently, the items of natural history, were split off from that museum and put into the Natural History Museum, and his books went to the British Library when that was created. So Sloane has been a fundamental creator, if you like, of some of the great academic institutions of the United Kingdom, and it was through his early efforts that gave insights into later scientists such as Darwin as to how everything fitted together and how evolution worked. In his lifetime, scientists throughout Europe came to see him and see his collection. He was the King's physician. He was president of the Royal Society, took over from Sir Isaac Newton. He was also president of the Royal College of Physicians, and no person's ever held those 2 posts in their lifetime. So he was a huge figure,